Welcome to the Awesemo MMA Live Before Lock show right here at Awesemo.com, as we are here to get you ready for UFC Vegas number 27, which kicks off in 1 hour from now in Las Vegas at the Apex. Hopefully everyone's having a great Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, depending on where you may be. And we got a little surprise for you here. I am joined by Pete Rogers Jr., the fighter, but we hop on Zoom and Pete's made his way out of his bunker, and he's got a nice little studio set up now in the house.
Well, what's up, everybody? What's up, Jason? How you guys doing? Happy to be here, and I have to say thank you to my mom and my girlfriend who decided to get the studio all set up while I was in quarantine for over a week and a half at Mohegan Sun. So it was a really nice surprise to come home, and everything was done. It's cool. I feel like a superstar, like Mike Check 1, 2. I'm Jason Floyd. What's up, guys?
Yeah, it's you got is that a little canvas art behind you there?
Yes, sir. A little canvas art, a couple action shots for my fights and all that. But the mic's not fully set up. Like nothing's perfect, but it's all kind of in place.
I mean, I thought like at some point like I was gonna get the call like, hey man, can you fly up to Connecticut to set up the home studio?
Right. Yeah. Right. I mean, these bright lights, I'm not used to this, Jason. I mean, credit to you. I know you probably got about, I have 2 ring lights right now. I think in Jason Floyd's studio, he probably has about 9 of them. You got one over here. You got no shadows whatsoever. God forbid there's a shadow. So, but no, just kidding. Happy to be here. What's up, everybody?
Yeah, that's me being a little bit of a perfectionist. I will admit there, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist here, but yeah, it's but of course we're here to break down UFC Vegas 27. Of course, the breaking news in terms of this card happened about an hour and a half ago. We did lose a fight, that is Yancy Medeiros and Damir Hadzovic, which did cause me to have to make some changes because Yancy Medeiros was an underdog that I was looking at. Then of course yesterday we learned that Paiva was out of his fight, and David Dvorak is staying on the card. His new opponent, Juan Camilo Ronderos, who is a 4-0 fighter. And before I went and watched his last fight, which was on UFC Fight Pass, it was a title fight against Eric Shelton. The one thing that I went, when these situations happen, Pete, I'm sure you kind of have the same type of scenario, is I go right to his Tapology. And I was like, ooh, 4-0, okay. Kind of quick getting to the UFC. Hasn't fought in 2 years. Okay, making weight on, probably 12 hours notice, essentially, based on when you see his Instagram story. So that to me was a concern there. Then I watched the tape. I didn't think he beat Eric Shelton. The one thing that really stuck out to me was how much he was taken down and not getting off his back. He does have 2 submission wins. And so it's just one of those situations after I watched that 5-round fight, I was like, not liking what I see here. And maybe I need to have a little bit more of David Dvorak, who, by the way, is approaching a 5-1 betting favorite. Yeah.
I will say that we're going to be banking on a lot of your analysis for that fight, but I do agree that, David Dvorak probably becomes the number 1 priority on the slate. Despite being in a lower weight class, he does have the grappling to kind of expose his opponent, so to speak, and put him in those, bad spots, maybe rack up some control time, some takedowns, and even on the regional scene, he did get some submission finishes, some TKO finishes. So I don't think a finish is out of the realm of possibility. And I do like Dvorak, and he's priced favorably. So now you're getting a damn near 5-1 or 4-1 favorite. At what's he, 8,800? So I think that's extremely reasonable, and he's going to be chalky. But sometimes it's okay to have to eat the chalk, so to speak.
Yeah, $6,800 for Ronderos over on DraftKings, $12 over on FanDuel. So you can check that out over there. Of course, so we're here to answer your questions on the fight. So you can line those up right now in our premium Slack channel. Also, right here on YouTube. We'll get to those, of course. Be sure, if you're not subscribed to Awesemo right here on YouTube, be sure to do that. We got a ton of great content for you each and every day. Of course, later today at 6 p.m. each time, we'll have MLB Live Before Lock, followed by NBA Live Before Lock. And then I'll be here for a little double header tomorrow for NBA Live Before Lock and also NASCAR Live Before Lock. So I did some office hours earlier today, and one of the fights that came up a little bit really was kind of in a way surprising to me, and that was Court McGee and Claudio Silva. And this is a fight that I don't know if I necessarily love it on the DraftKings side of the equation. If you want to be a Court McGee backer, because I just think you need a ton of volume. I think FanDuel could be a little bit of a different story because of if Claudio Silva is going to win this fight, it's him getting the fight to the ground, going for submission. So I can see if you want to be a Court McGee backer, FanDuel makes a lot more sense. Because I expect that even if Claudio Silva is unsuccessful in going for takedowns, this is a fight that I do expect that, likelihood it's going to go 15 minutes. Court McGee has never been submitted in his career, so there's something to note there. But let me get your thoughts on kind of this fight and how are you looking at it?
Yeah, so it's a weird fight for sure, but naturally every week, that 8,200, 8,000 fights, pretty difficult to avoid because of the flexibility it provides for your roster. Also the upside at their price, they don't really have to go crazy and get necessarily 100 points. If they get, let's say, 85 and up, I think you'd be decently satisfied with that, but it's all relative to the slate. It's an intriguing matchup because the old Court McGee, I think, could stifle the takedown attempts of Claudio Silva, but the Court McGee of now, I don't really know. I can't get a read on him because he's been so inconsistent, and I know he's put up some decent, significant strike numbers, but as far as like performance-wise, he has not looked the best, and he's been on, quite a skid. But whenever somebody's on a skid, when their job's on the line and they're cornered, a lot of times you'll see them, make adjustments in the training room, make adjustments with their camp, or attempt to, just go out there and put on a heck of a performance. So if Court McGee kind of like is able to find that old style of himself, he should be able to win the fight, but I still feel like Claudio Silva will be able to get him down. And even if he can't hold him down, should do enough to get a victory. And 8,200, I think that he's a decent play.
I'm more on the Court McGee aspect of this one. One of the things, look, these are both two older fighters. Claudio Silva, I believe, is 41, Court's 39 or 37, 39, somewhere in that range. That one. The other fight that I keep going back and forth on, and I think it's definitely a DraftKings FanDuel difference here, and that's the co-main event of Yan Xiaonan and Carlos Esparza. When I was doing some crunches, I was getting way too much Carlos Esparza on DraftKings because I didn't want to get to a ton of her. Obviously, and you brought great points on the strategy show about her takedown abilities. And look, if Carla wins, she's going to win via takedowns. Now, if you are a Yan Xiaonan backer in this one, to me, she's a much better play over on FanDuel.
Yeah, I think that on FanDuel, I would be looking at, Yan Xiaonan's direction. On DraftKings, Esparza is extremely appealing. And even if she doesn't get a finish, which the likelihood of her getting a finish is very slim, I think that she can do enough at her salary to get a couple takedowns to pay off her salary and some, and also allow you to get, to other high priced options. But, with David Dvorak at 8,800, you don't really have to reach for so many high options now. We kind of get a nice value there. I do still like Carla Esparza, but I understand why you're hesitant about it because she, on the feet, she's somewhat of a liability. She just doesn't look impressive. She gets kind of tagged from left to right. It's still the American wrestling for me. Like I really feel like Carla Esparza just has that. And, we've seen Xiaonan put on her back several times, and I think that she'll be able to do enough and, get a decision win. So, I think a contrarian approach on DraftKings would probably be Xiaonan because that Esparza is going to have decent ownership.
I will tell you, when I was looking at ownership, Xiaonan was one of the fighters that stuck out to me of where she was in terms of ownership and finding leverage against the field. The other one, and I was kind of surprised at his ownership, and that was Bill Algeo. I did not think he would be at what he was at. Of course, I understand in a way why his ownership is what it is because while yes, he is a volume striker, if there's no knockdowns, no takedowns, I can see where the point will come in. Let me mention this question over in Slack, Chicken Dinner 1970. He goes, is Ismagulov worth that $9,500 price tag? I did not find myself getting to a ton of him. I think he's definitely the right side to play in that matchup, but it was more about the price point and roster construction with him, because at 9,500, then I think you're looking at the Edmund Shabazians, the Jared Vanderas. I mean, that's the type of roster construction you're going to have.
Yeah, so anytime you have a fighter that's priced up that much, they have to come through and pay off their salary and some, because what it's doing is it's capping your upside, so to speak, because you're limited to your, the options for the remaining part of your roster. And, you'll be dumpster diving if you roster Ismagulov at 9,500, which is okay if the long shot underdogs come through. It all depends on your thoughts and your thinking and analysis for the rest of the slate. Like, we'll get to Shabazian and Hermanson, but I mean, initially I did like Hermanson, but the more I started thinking about the COVID situation, that maybe I'll increase my exposure to Shabazian, because I think it's a legitimate concern. But as far as Ismagulov at 9,500, the A side of the fight, fighting a guy that struggled to make weight in losses, Alves has been finished in multiple ways. And I think that Ismagulov is a legitimate lightweight. Like, I really do. The only thing about Ismagulov is his time away from the cage, right? Like, everybody should get a pass for a year, because during COVID, everybody gets one COVID year, okay? Kind of wipe that off the slate, because it was just such a weird time. Even though the UFC was putting on fights throughout, it was just such a weird time, especially depending on your country or whatnot. But I do like Damir Ismagulov. I just wish he was a little bit more active in the cage.
In terms of mentioning a question that came in over on YouTube from Matt about Hermanson, so with Hermanson just getting over COVID and admitting cardio is probably going to be even, do you uncheck him at his price? I do not uncheck him. Kind of what we talked about Thursday, my thoughts haven't changed on Jack Hermanson. I mean, look, he's got a grappling advantage. I think that Shabazian has a striking advantage in it. But, my just concern is the fact of Hermanson just taking him down and just wearing down, where even if this fight does get to the third round, I think the cardio will be just about even on both of these guys. To me, I found it where when I was doing my crunches, I was getting to a little bit too much Edmund Shabazian. I didn't want to get that high. So, that's when I really started limiting my exposure on several fighters. Carlos Esparza was another one that I was just getting way too much of, so to me, I think you want to have both sides of that fight.
Yeah. I mean, that matchup screams GPP, because we've seen the holes of Shabazian's game in the grappling department, even in the cardio department. Perhaps being at just 3 rounds will help him. Now, we now have the concern about Hermanson being able to take a shot because he's been finished in the past, and also the COVID concern. So, I mean, I'm fine with splitting exposure, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't more interested in Shabazian today than I was on Thursday.
By the way, mention about those ownership projections. Got a little gift for you today, as they are free over at Awesemo.com. So if you want to get a little peek of what's behind that paywall, MMA ownership are free. Also free today, NBA main slate ownership, MLB top pitchers, and NHL player and stack rankings. Of course, you like what you see, then you got to sign up for Awesemo Plus so you can have access to those for the next UFC card and all the DFS that we got going over the site. Of course, that was kind of how I spent a lot of my morning developing my MMA lineups and my NBA lineups. Of course, you can get Awesemo weekly pass for $29.95. If you just want that MMA pass, you can get for $8.95. And one of those, in terms of MMA, a Top Fire tool definitely is a tool that you do want to check in and help developing your lineups. But of course, when you know those ownership projections, it definitely helps you out a lot in terms of getting who you want in your lineup. Let me get a question here from Dan Gates. He says, in a cash game, can you play both Font and Garbrandt in the same lineup? Personally, I would not. What would concern me about, if you want to put those, I can see why you would put them in the same lineup. However, the concern has got to be, if the fight doesn't go 25 minutes, I don't know if that philosophy works.
Yeah, it doesn't. If it doesn't go the distance, it doesn't work out for you. So you have to have confidence that it goes the distance, but also confidence that Cody Garbrandt's chin can hold up throughout, because Rob Font's very technical, and we've seen Garbrandt wobbled in the past. We've also seen Garbrandt kind of throw the game plan out the window and just start brawling. I'm okay with doing it in a couple lineups because I think the salary makes it easy. And we always talk about when a main event is, not priced up where one fighter is 9,000 or whatnot. And, we're able to have Rob Font at 8,300, Cody Garbrandt at 7,900. I would stack it in just a few lineups just in case, because both guys will probably want to keep it on the feet. Cody Garbrandt could always change and switch things up and go back to his wrestling roots if things get a little ugly. But I highly doubt that. And in most of my lineups, I would just be picking one or the other. And I still do like Rob Font today.
Brad mentioned about how much money to leave on the table. He goes, I have 2,100 left. Well, that's going to make you very unique. This is one of those weeks where I didn't find myself leaving much money on the table.
Yeah, I mean, so naturally, right? Like everybody's going to be looking to spend their salary. So if you have a ton of lineups that have no cash left over, or let's say under 300 left over, you will be splitting with a lot of people. We speak of this every week. But sometimes that's good because it does come through. And especially if you feel confident about it and you're able to save in one spot and pay up for a high 9,000 fighter like Ismagulov or something, then I can't fault you.
Of course, if you do have any questions, line those up in the chat. We will get to those as well. I know someone had mentioned over in Slack about Bill Algeo as a FanDuel MVP. He is one of the fighters. I don't have a lot of love for fighters as an MVP today, but I've got a pool of fighters, and one of those was Bill Algeo. And part of that is obviously is a little bit of a leverage play to me in terms of getting away from the field, because you just know everyone's going to be on the main event, co-main event. It's kind of like I relate it to an NBA showdown contest. Everyone's always looking for that star player. Like you think of the other night with the Wizards. Everyone wanted to go to Russell Westbrook. So the analogy here in MMA is getting away from the main event co-main event fighters can help you get some leverage. To this one, to me, it's more about the main event. So like there are some fighters I think you definitely have to look at in terms of MVP. I don't Yan Janan, if she can stop takedowns. I mean, that's a big question mark in that one. But you look at that heavyweight matchup, which we talked a lot about on Thursday with Tafa and Bandera. I mean, obviously Tafa's got the power on the feet, but if Bandera can get this ground, I mean, ground and pound is what he does. David Dvorak, I think, is someone that you have to consider as MVP. Ben Rothwell taking on Chris Barnett. Chris Barnett, my understanding is that his team has been trying to get him into the UFC for a while, so this was an opportunity. And so you knew he was going to make weight yesterday, but he's a shorter heavyweight. He's 5'9", but he's a big boy. He's a big boy. Very athletic though for his frame.
Yeah, he's not your typical big short guy. I mean, his athleticism is crazy. I'm interested to see the fight, and he's definitely an entertainer. So people will like him. He'll be like a Michel Pereira, kind of just being reckless at times and dancing. And I'm excited to see him debut. But man, that's a tough debut against Ben Rothwell. Overall, I'm excited for this card. I'm happy that you guys are joining us. Jason, we got 300 people in our video checking us out. We appreciate you. If you guys can hit that like button, leave some questions in the chat, we'll get right to it, and we appreciate you.
Yeah, of course. And I'm just going to double check here, make sure lock is still set for 4 p.m. In terms of from the UFC's aspect. We did lose one fight, so it wouldn't be surprised if maybe the fights start a little bit later, but everything I'm seeing so far still has us at a 4 p.m. start time. So got to get we got 40 minutes here before we get to lock. So, if you do have any questions, be sure to hit us up there. Next up, and of course, by the way, we're 28 subscriptions away from 55,000. Let's try to get to that 55,000 number here during the MMA Live Before Lock show. Let's get that in there. In terms of especially a question here from Brad. He's asking about a fighter that I don't feel like we touched on a ton on Thursday, and that's Josh Kulabo, 9,100.
I don't know, man. Depends on how many lineups you're playing, right? Like Josh Kulabo looked really good at times in his previous performance against Charles Jourdain before Jourdain ended up, making that a little close. But it's a draw. And then he lost his debut to Jalen Turner, which is a very tough guy to to fight on your debut because he's a monster for the division. So Josh Kulabau actually impressed me his last time out with his striking, but to be such a favorite at 9,100, I understand that, you know, he's facing a guy in Shailene that, you know, is, well, let's say that a lot of foreign talent doesn't really have the best success in the States in the UFC. Shailene definitely has a solid wrestling and grappling background where he can make this interesting. And Shailene is a guy at 7,100 that I think should be a part of your underdog pool because of that grappling path and just the unknown surrounding, you know, Josh Kulabau. But I do think Josh Kulabau wins the fight. 9,100 is kind of just like I don't know. If I'm playing like less than, say I'm doing a 3 max, I'm probably not including Kulabau. If I'm playing a 20 max, I'll probably dabble a little bit. 150, obviously, you have to get exposure a little bit everywhere.
Yeah. Ian mentioned any juicy big money plus props that caught your eye. You know, one of the, I'll say is Rob Font wins round 2. You're getting about 5-1 odds depending on where you're at. I would look at Ben Rothwell submission prop. You know, that's in the range of a 4-1 prop there. You know, there's some other props that I mentioned on the strategy show. You know, there's some fights on here that I do think, you know, look, if you're Ismagulov, I'd be, you know, you don't want to play that straight up number. You're looking for a prop, an inside a distance type prop on there in terms of that one. So, yeah, the Ben Rothwell by sub, it was high at one point. People have hammered on that one. That was a one that was there. So, let's get some more questions in here. Let's see here. In a single entry GPP, who are the favorite 9K plays and favorite sub 8K plays? I know we have a lot of single entry players that check in here with us. I hand build all of my single entry lineups. You know, so I really found myself, it was obviously, to me, it's starting off at the main event. I did find myself getting to Justin Tafa a little bit. I was really having the debate of, I could take Tafa out and go to Ismagulov, which I think may be the safer play, but I think the ceiling's higher for Justin Tafa.
Okay, so the 9,000 options are a little interesting, right? Ismagulov 9,500 makes roster construction difficult. So let's kind of like, he's a great play. If you like a lot of underdogs, you plug him in. Okay, let's kind of ignore him for right now, just for this breakdown. Bruno Silva 9,300, stepping up on short notice against Rodriguez. Short notice replacement, definitely the A side of the fight, though. But at 9,300, you're banking on him being in great condition and great shape and kind of peak performance. But I still think the skill set wins out. He wins. Does he pay off the price tag? Rothwell, 9,200, man. I don't know. I'm just not feeling Rothwell as far as like GPPs. I think that he's a solid play. He'll get the victory. But like as far as getting 100 points, it's hard to really. When's the last time he got 100 points? 3 fights ago. Stefan Struve. Yeah, knocked him out. I mean, Stefan Struve got knocked down by a lot of people because he just didn't use his range. In that range, right, like Kulabau 9,100, I'd much rather just take a shot at Justin Tafa. It's heavyweight MMA. Yes, it's a volatile matchup. Yes, there are question marks surrounding his ground game. But Vandera, in his previous bouts, doesn't like bank on his takedowns like he should. Coming from Team Quest, working with Dan Henderson also, like he does not go in there trying to go and take you down over and over and over and utilize that BJJ black belt like he should. And I think that he has a big ego. I've listened to a lot of, you know, interviews with him, and he wants to just strike with Justin Tafa, and that could be a recipe for a disaster. And, you know, Justin Tafa hits pretty damn hard. So 9,000, I like him. I might like him the most in the 9,000 range just for upside.
Trey was asking about our top 2 captains on DraftKings. Looking over there, I would look at, I think first off, it's either Rob Font or Cody Garbrandt. I'd rather go Rob Font. He's 11,100. And if I was going to go up a little bit more, I would probably look at Justin Tafa at 14,400.
Yeah, I mean, that contest is hard. Do you have a lot of success with that contest? I mean,
The thing about the DraftKings captain contest, it really, to me, it becomes of who are those low end options. So if we look at the low end options today, for example, Barnett 6,300, Vandera 6,900, Shabazian 7,500, Dumont 8,100. Then it's Esparza 8,700, Ramos 9,300. Obviously you've talked about why you like Carlos Esparza, and those are the captain numbers in terms of. But if you want to take Carlos Esparza in the flex position, there's 5,800. Let's put Esparza in there at 5,800. Let's just put Rob Font in at captain. So he's 11-1. You put Carlos Esparza at 5,800. Now we got 8,200 left average per player. Okay, so let's look at some other ones that let's say you want to throw in. Let's say Claudio Silva. You mentioned about how you like him. There's 7,600. So now we're up to 8,500 per player. So you see, that's where the trick thing comes with those captain contests is you're going to have two underdogs in your lineup that you think can win. Esparza and Claudio Silva both do have the grappling aspect that you do like in terms of scoring on DraftKings.
Yeah, I mean, the captain contest is essentially like a showdown. So you have to treat it like that. So you're going to get a nice stud in your lineup, whether in the captain spot or not, get 2 to 3 really solid plays in there. And then you have to find that cheap piece that comes through for you. And finding that cheap piece is the tough part. But for the captain contest, the 2 cheap pieces that really kind of like pique my interest would be Carlos Esparza and Edmund Shabazian for, reasons we've already spoken of.
I mean, like I'll use the example the other night of NBA Showdown where, I had a good night. Gafford was my captain. That was the winning lineup. Yeah. If he wasn't your captain, I was one of 12 people who took down the contest. So, everyone, you all want to go to Russell, in that situation, everyone wanted to go to Russell Westbrook. Those are those captain contests. If it's a multi-entry contest, you got to start looking at the fighters that are just not going to have ownership. Everyone's going to go to Font. Everyone's going to go to Cody Garbrandt. They're going to look at the heavyweights because you do expect the heavyweight fights are going to end and finish. So, like, to me, those are, it's a key to how you win at those showdown contests.
Yeah, 100%. And if the stud, let's say the high-priced guy like Russell Westbrook ends up going out there and scoring 80, like you're going to need him in that captain spot. But if he has a general good game and you have a cheap fighter or a cheap player on there that has, an extremely good game for their salary, now you have that cheap fighter or that cheap player in the captain spot, it also allows you to stack a ton of studs. So maybe a Carlos Esparza or an Edmund Shabazian in the captain spot would allow you that flexibility to spend up.
Of course, this show is sponsored by Monkey Knife Fight. If you want to play over at Monkey Knife Fight, you can do that right now. Be sure to use that promo code Awesemo for instant first match deposit up to $100. And of course, on that main event, we got high numbers in the more or less contest. Significant strikes landed, 82.5 for Rob Font, 62.5 for Cody Garbrandt. And we talked about this a little bit on Thursday. If you think that fight's going to end in the first or second round, you might as well just go double less. But if you think this fight's going to go all 25 minutes, that's a double more hit to me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's going to go a little bit later because I do think that Cody Garbrandt, like with Mark Henry, he's not going to be the same reckless guy that he was at one point. But underlying, a dog is a dog. You know what I mean? Like, and it's tough to kind of break that mold, and especially if he gets really hurt and he'll start making mistakes. But you have to have exposure to Cody Garbrandt today. I mean, you talk about a former champ and the guy that has explosive power. I don't think that it's just pick Rob Font and move on. I think it's split exposure. And, if Cody Garbrandt ever used his entire skill set with his wrestling, I think that he could be an even better fighter. It's just we haven't seen it in the octagon.
Yeah, of course, that's the more or less games over there at Monkey Knife Fight player props. Be sure to check out that. The one player prop that I'm looking at over at Monkey Knife Fight is actually the Justin Toffoli, Jared Vandera. I believe that has a potential to be less on both of those just because of if Vandera wins, to me, it's him taking the fight to the ground, and those won't necessarily be considered significant strikes potentially. So that's one thing to take advantage of there. Mention this question. over on Slack says Algeo was an option touted by Pete and Jason for MVP on FanDuel. Yeah, I mean, look, it's as much of a leverage play. Blackbird says, is it smart to stack Font and Garbrandt in a FanDuel cash lineup? No.
I wouldn't do that. That's just, what's the price on FanDuel this week, Jason, for both?
20 and 18.
Yeah. How are you going to do that? You have a bunch of fights, and it's tough for both of them to really pay off their salaries over on FanDuel.
And one of the things, and obviously these DFS salaries are set earlier in the week, and you look at that co-main event, while it was 86 and 7,600 at the start of the week, but when you look at the betting odds, it's now a pick'em fight.
Is it really?
Yeah, minus 107 Jan Janan, minus 103 for Carlos Barza.
Interesting. Everybody's kind of like banking on Carlos Barza finally falling off because her striking is just not evolving, and she's just does the same thing over and over. But, in a way, if it's not broken, why fix it? But she does need to make some adjustments to her game. I think she could be even better. She looks in incredible shape. I mean, she does look like she's taking it very seriously.
Better punt play, Jared Vandera or Chris Barnett? For me, I would rather play.
I'd say Vandera, no?
Yeah, I would say Vandera. But the one thing with Ben Rothwell is, Ben Rothwell has slowed down. You think about since he's come back off that suspension, but to me, he should win that fight. Ben Rothwell should win.
What was this suspension?
USADA.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, you don't like hearing that, especially when a guy's at the tail end of his career. So, but I mean, Jared Vandera kind of has that X factor about him where he looked awful in his UFC debut, but on the Contender Series showed that if he gets top position, he's extremely dangerous. And that's the one thing about Justin Tafa, is if Justin Tafa gets taken down, I do think that he can be exposed there. So I was still leaning Jared Vandera. I still think that Ben Rothwell in his fight will probably just do enough. I mean, he's a savvy veteran to get it done.
Yeah, it was a PED, anabolic androgenic steroid of exogenous origin.
That's a bad one.
He claimed that he had been prescribed testosterone by a physician and submitted medical records to back his treatment, but USADA's independent TUE committee, therapeutic use exemption, determined that he did not meet the criteria for a TUE and that he'll be punished. So he got a 2-year suspension for that.
Ooh. Yeah, that's not a good one either.
That was back in 2018. I want to say that was.
Okay, so let's do a quick dive. He hasn't been.
Yeah, 2018.
He hasn't been the same since that. Let's see. Since 2018. Okay, coming off the loss to Marcin Tybura, split decision over Owen St. Preux, got a victory over Stefan Struve. I mean, he's been all right, but he hasn't looked the same. Like, to me, like the eye test. Like,
yeah.
Losing to Andrei Arlovsky and Blagoy Ivanov, kind of both underwhelming guys, but I don't know. He just hasn't really looked great.
Yeah. Next up, Samuel says, is it worth taking a punt on the short notice fighter Ronderos? Who's your favorite cheap punt on DraftKings? My favorite cheap punt on DraftKings is Edmund Shabazian.
Yeah.
But he has to keep the fight on the feet. It cannot become a grappling matchup. Ronderos, I mean, look, if you're playing multiple entries and you want to put, if you're in a 20 max and you want to throw them in 2 lineups, I got no problem with that.
I think that David Dvorak's pretty damn good. So, I mean, I was really struggling with the David Dvorak against Holly and Paiva matchup. And now with a guy stepping up on short notice that has a flaw in his game, I just think that David Dvorak is clearly the A side, but it is fighting, right? I mean, the best guy doesn't always win, and crazy stuff happens. We see it all the time. For the underdogs that I like, I would probably start at Kulabao's opponent. What's his name? Shailene. I think that he should be in your GPP pool for upside. Jared Vandera, Shabazian, and Carla Esparza. That's kind of like the 3 or 4 that I'm looking at, kind of mixing and matching.
Next up, Joey says, better last piece for a DraftKings single entry, Rodriguez, Barnett, or Shailene?
Yeah, it's got to be Shailene. Just because of the wrestling. But I don't like the matchup for him. But
Yeah, I mean, in terms of those three, I mean, like, you know, I might throw Barnett just because of the potential of a finish. It's heavyweight MMA. The one thing that would concern me about Barnett is, how much weight did he have to cut to make over the last week to get down to, I want to say he weighed at 263.5. And does he have more than a 5-minute cardio gas tank in terms of, kind of what has he been doing, over the last, couple of weeks?
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at the record of Shailene right now, and Shailene's strength of schedule, it's really tough to get behind. And I can say the same thing about your boy Barnett. Like, there are a lot of questionable matchups in there, but I understand that he was a big guy and it was tough to find fights in certain spots. But I don't know, man. Fighting Ben Rothwell is a little tough. I think I'd probably take a shot on Shailene in hopes that his wrestling could come through. But I mean, I don't really like those options.
Yeah. Next up, best DraftKings dog under 7,500.
Under, huh?
So let's see here. So then we got Jared Vandera. If we're including 7,500, that'd be Norman Dumont, Giacomilo Ronderos, Shabazian, Barnett, Rodriguez, Shailene, and Alves.
It's Shabazian, despite the worry of his grappling. It's Shabazian.
Yeah. Someone thinking you're hungover. Come on. We all know Pete's not a heavy drinker.
Yeah, I'm not a heavy drinker. It was a long week, man.
Could you even get hungover with as little as you drink?
Of course. I'd get sick. Like, I think you understand. I have like one drink and I'm like about to throw up. Like, I'm such a little girl with this drink.
So basically you're saying if I roll to Connecticut and we're in the Mohegan Sun, you're the DD. That's what you're saying.
I'm always naturally the DD. That's how it is. But I mean, like, I try to have a good time, and I have a good time without it. And then every now and then I will drink, and I would drink too much. But yeah, no, I'm not hungover. It was just a long night, long weekend, long week. And
look, let's be honest, Mike. You're just excited to sleep in your own bed tonight.
I know. I actually got home late last night, so I slept in my own bed last night. It was really nice. But especially when fights don't go the way that you have been hoping, and it sucks. You put a lot of we've all invested a lot of time, energy, and everything, and you just want everything to go well. But it's the fight game, man. It's a tough game. Every time you step in the cage, 50-50 shot, you're gonna lose. So it's crazy.
Let's see here. Ty says I have 8,000 left. Who would be the best choice? Well, I guess the question then becomes who do you have under 8,000? Because we might name somebody who's already in your lineup.
Right. We have to know the rest of your lineup, but like, say I don't really like Ricardo Ramos at all today. Like, I don't. I think that he's a skilled fighter, but I think that Bill Algeo is just going to push him and test him in a ton of spots. Cody Garbrandt probably needs to be a part of your like priority list. Same with Rob Font. Only one of those guys. But you like Court McGee at 8,000. I like Carlos Esparza at 76.
I'd rather play Carlo in DraftKings than Court. Court to me is more of a FanDuel play.
What's his FanDuel price?
He's $15.
Yeah, that's nice. That's a nice one.
I mean, like let's be honest. If that fight goes 15 minutes, if I said Claudio Silva goes for 10 takedown attempts,
he probably gets 3. If.
But then you start thinking, like let's say Claudio Silva goes 3 for 10 in takedown attempts. Mm-hmm. That's 7 takedown attempts. And if Court McGee can get right back to his feet, you love those points if you've got Court on FanDuel.
That is true.
I mean, think about it. Who was it?
Remember John Dodson stopped 15 takedowns against Dalashvili?
He stopped 18, but no, there was a fighter like a week or two ago that stopped a ton of takedowns. I'm sure someone in chat can remind us who it was, but there was somebody who just stopped a ton of takedowns. And it is a way that when you're playing on FanDuel, it has to go into your consideration, especially when you're talking about underdogs? Who are the underdogs that can stop takedowns and that they may end up being optimal just because of that, even in a losing effort?
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying. Now you got my brain scrambled. Throw it in chat, guys, if you remember who it is, because it's going to drive me nuts.
It was in the last 2 weeks. It was like the last 2 or 3 weeks. And I remember because we were having the conversation in Slack during the fights of how many takedowns that person had. Let me see over here. FanDuel Cash, Vandera, or Dumont?
I mean, I like what Dumont looked like in her past fight. It's just like her striking's good. She does supposedly have a solid BJJ background as well. I just think that she could be kind of, undersized in this matchup against Felicia Spencer. I don't think Felicia Spencer's bad at all. I think that Ashley Evans Smith is not good, and that's why Norma Dumont really had a good performance. Felicia Spencer been in there with the best, so I would not pick Norma Dumont in that situation. So who's the other one that we were talking about?
It was Vandera? Dumont or Vandera.
Yeah, it's got to be Vandera.
Yeah. By the way, I know in YouTube chat, Gary and Chad and Joey all mentioned and Woody, Lando Venata, 17 takedowns against Mike Grundy.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, team. That's we appreciate you guys helping us out. Thank you. That was and that's the card that I wasn't able to watch. I mean, that blows my mind that he was able to stop that much against Grundy. I mean, that does mean something.
Yeah, that's where on FanDuel, I mean, look, and I know some people don't necessarily like playing over there, but when you are playing on FanDuel, it has to go into your thought process on what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, number one thing, right? Just like on Monkey Knife Fight, when you're playing the more or less, number one thing that you have to consider: does the fight go the distance? Because if the fight goes the distance, then obviously those totals, you need to take that into consideration. If you think the fight is being stopped within 2 rounds, then you need to be targeting the less on a lot of them. So, Jason, we have a little over 300 people in here. If you guys would just hit that like button, shows that you appreciate the show. Pop your questions in chat. We got a little bit of time.
Yeah, definitely hit those questions up. I know there's a couple questions we haven't gotten to quite yet, so we'll get to those as we do go on. One of the things we always got to mention is who is a fighter that we're not talking about.
All right, who are we not talking about, team? And if you think that we're not talking about somebody, you just let us know. Who are we not talking about? Well, we haven't really talked about Jack Hermanson because everybody and their brother is worried about the COVID situation, including myself. Haven't really talked about Felicia Spencer.
How about Raphael Alves?
Yeah, so his price is absolutely ridiculous because he's extremely skilled, but he's going up against a very, very, very tough matchup against Ismagulov. And Raphael Alves, 19-9 overall, coming from a good camp, MMA Masters still, I believe, and I like that camp. I think that they're very solid everywhere. Threatening jiu-jitsu, threatening on the feet. But, he has been submitted in the past and finished in the past. So maybe we're not showing Ismagulov enough love. Like, yeah, it's a hefty price tag. But, like, if you look at Raphael Alves' losses, man, leg kicks, guillotine, armbar, retirement, injury. Like, Ismagulov's one of the best 155ers out there for sure. So I think it could be a good spot, but Raphael Alves is so cheap. It's almost like disrespectful.
Yeah. Of course, one of the things that me and Pete both love to see after the fights are over, those screenshots. And of course, you can get into the Awesemo Hall of Fame. Of course, when you download that Awesemo profile pic at awesemo.com/avatar, place in the top 3 in a contest of over 5,000 contest entries, and tweet your wins to @Awesemo HOFB Henry, taking down an NBA Showdown contest. So he gets in there. Congratulations, winning a little over $600 there. Also, our guy Alex Baker coming down in first in a PGA contest over there as well. Some baseball winnings, and so we always do appreciate that. I saw one of our users using Fantasy Cruncher to build his lineups and help him buy a new pool. So kudos to him for doing that.
What was that? I saw that too. I like that phone. He bought him a pool. He's like, thanks, awesome. I'm like, yeah, that pool is nice. That's awesome. I mean, if you guys are subscribed to Awesemo, it'll help me buy my girlfriend a Peloton, got a new puppy. You know what I mean? Like, all these cool things. Got a new studio. Like, if you can actually take your time and find a process that works for you, I think that you can have a lot of success, combining the strategy shows and the tools over on our website.
Yeah. Get to some more of your questions that have come in here over the past couple minutes. P-Reg, any stackable fights tonight? The only way I think you can consider stacking a fight is Font Garbrandt. It has to go 25 minutes. I don't think it goes 25 minutes, though.
Okay, let's see. They're priced like it makes sense, right? Let me see. I'm kind of scrolling through Silva Court McGee. I doubt that would materialize into a lot. The only thing I could say, right, and this is a completely contrarian approach, is if you rostered as Magulov, right, or Dvorak, right, and then you roster their opponent, and you think that they're so cheap that they have some success in the fight, that they could pay off in a loss, and all that savings could allow you to get to a unique lineup. That's the only way I would stack a fight in addition to the main event. But you know me, guys, I'm not big into stacking.
Next up, I know there was a question about if this was the first fight, and Jared has asking if Edmund has fought since that Brunson fight. No. And it sounds like apparently the UFC went to Edmund with multiple fights, and he chose Hermanson. And apparently Hermanson may have been the only ranked fighter that they put in front of him. So that was a very interesting thought there. Charlie asking about Bruno Silva and Victor Rodriguez.
Yeah, I like Bruno Silva a lot, despite jumping up on short notice. The skill set's there. Surrounded by champions and amazing wrestlers, and you can kind of see the skill set of his teammates kind of trickling into his own game. And it was evident in his previous performance against JP Bays. And I think that he's in a great spot. But traditionally, flyweights do not deliver a lot of high scores for DFS. But I do think that this is a nice matchup. I don't think that Victor Rodriguez, no disrespect, I just don't think that he is quite on the level to Bruno Silva. And he's already been knocked out twice. And guess where he comes from, Jason? Our favorite promotion, Alaska FC. So Alaska FC is a little, it's just the strength of schedule over there is just we shake our head a little bit.
There's a couple of promotions that jump off my mind when you see fighters. Alaska FC is one of them.
Okay.
You also got Explode Fight Series. And there's one other California one.
Some of these
basically, go look who Jordan Wright fought for before he went to LFA.
Yeah, it's like whenever the promotion sounds like a WWE old school event, like you already know it's probably questionable matchmaking going on.
Yeah. Go Pokes asked if we like Felicia Spencer, and short answer is yes. I do like Felicia Spencer in that fight.
Me too. She could work towards a finish, but Norma Dumont does have some skills.
Gordon says, what were y'all saying about the Hermanson fight? Scared to play because of COVID. It's a concern, him just getting over COVID, and how is his body going to react, particularly if the fight gets, middle second, late third. Obviously, we've seen some cardio issues with Edmund Shabazian in terms of the grappling aspect. To me, if Jack Hermanson's winning this fight, it's because he's grappling Edmund Shabazian, because I do believe Shabazian does have the advantage on the feet.
So say we didn't hear about the COVID situation. Who are you picking in a full camp? They both have full camps. They're all healthy. There's no concerns at all. Who are you picking?
I would pick Hermanson because of the grappling.
Yeah, me too. So I went from being a Hermanson backer to now having COVID, and now also kind of like really thinking about how he's talking about it and saying that his cardio will be affected from having COVID. It's like, man, like the transparency is great. It could be mental warfare. We don't know, but it also is a genuine concern. Like I don't know.
There's a reason not to be honest in interviews.
Right. Exactly. But, and do you think he's being honest by saying that he could be zapped from COVID? Or do you think that he's using that to hope that Shabazian's going to buy into it?
I can see both sides of it. I could.
Right.
Like there's just like, I mean, look, I've been interviewing fighters for a long time. The one thing that I do know is there are going to be things that are said to you and things that are not going to said to you. You just got to try to figure out what the truth is.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like a lot of it isn't the truth. They're putting it out there so that if their opponent does hear it, perhaps that they're going to be swayed one way or another, or think that something's going to happen when it doesn't.
And let's be honest about it. The reality is their opponent or someone in their opponent's team is watching every interview that fighter does.
Oh, of course. Like everybody's deep diving. So if you think that Hermansson is just playing a game, because his body looked incredible. He looks like he's in solid shape. Hermansson might be a leverage play, or not a leverage play, but kind of like an overlooked player today, or overlooked fighter, because a lot of people will see COVID. Oh my God, I'm picking Shabazian, and he's cheap.
There has been plenty of times throughout my time doing fighter interviews that you hop on a Skype call and the guy goes, "Oh yeah, I watched the interview we did with my opponent."
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It happens. It happens a lot. Fighters pay attention to a lot of things. Let's see here. Let's try to get some rapid fire questions in before we get out of here. By the way, of course, one of the great perks of being an Also Plus member is our premium Slack channel, as me and Pete are always in there during the fights to chat away with you about what is happening in the fights. Silva, Alves, Dumont, or Shabazian?
It's either Silva or Shabazian for me. I mean, I think that Claudio Silva is a strong play. Like, not a strong play, but I like him. The only reason I like Shabazian is because of the COVID concern.
Yeah. Next up, Silva and Hermansson, or Ismagulov and Edmond?
I'd probably go Ismagulov and Edmond. Like, that is nice.
Yeah. Especially if Edmond can keep the fight on the feet. Emily Algeo or Ramos. I think everyone knows I'm on the Bill Algeo train. I'm on El Senor Perfecto.
I like Algeo, and obviously if he doesn't come through today, you got Ramos at a very low percentage.
Bruno Silva or Damir Ismagulov?
$200 savings. $200 savings. I'll go with Bruno Silva.
Let's see here. Mr. Miyagi asked him what thoughts on Carl. I think we've kind of, really broken that one down. I mean, look, if she gets a takedown, she's going to get a win.
Yeah.
Mention this one. Someone in our chat says 80% font for me.
Ooh. I mean, you might be playing in 20 max or something. I don't know. That's still a lot. That's like, I like Rob Font, and I'll probably have some natural bias because of New England, but I think that he has the skills to get it done. But Cody Garbrandt, very, very dangerous guy, can easily knock out Rob Font.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to get to a lot of Rob Font. I am getting to a lot of Rob Font tonight. Not that high, but still pretty high. 8%. What's the best value fighter?
Yeah, it's Esparza or Shabazian for me.
Yeah, I was going to mention Esparza just because of that takedown ability of what she can do in terms of that. Of course, we lost Medeiros and Hadovich, so if you've not changed up your lines, you better do that now, as we're just under 5 minutes away from lock at this time. Someone asked me earlier if I was fading any fights. I'm not fading any fight. There's some fighters that I didn't want to have a lot on, though.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people will be hesitant to put like a guy like Cody Garbrandt in their lineup because of the volatility. And I do think that you do need exposure to Cody Garbrandt because he's always one shot away, and he has that wrestling in his back pocket. But his defensive flaws are what makes me like Rob Font.
Yeah, I knew I wanted about 80% exposure on that fight. I truly believe that you have to have that fight.
Yeah.
And I was in the 50-30, 50 obviously being for Rob Font.
Yeah.
I mean, look, you can't, like, even though, look, that I do like Rob in the matchup. If Cody wins, Cody's going to be optimal. It's one of these fights that I feel like the odds of it not being optimal are unlikely.
Yeah. So overall slate, Rob Font and Cody Garbrandt are two of the best values on the entire slate. They have 5 rounds to work with, and they are both volume strikers. Cody Garbrandt definitely has the power edge, but I think that's probably one of the best GPP fights on the slate. So how can you get away from it?
Yeah. Of course, we're just here a couple minutes before we're here going to hit lock. Of course, by the way, we're not here next week. No UFC next week.
Oh,
no
really?
Memorial Day weekend show. Yeah. So clearly I just gave you news that you weren't aware of. Yeah. No MMA card next week.
Can we be serious? Do you really think I know what's going on next week? Do you really think I know what's going on tomorrow? I go day by day, and that's why I rely on you. Like you tell. How many times do I ask you what time the show is? How many times do I not know what's going on? Like
usually it's the Wednesday. Hey Pete, by the way, we got a show tomorrow. And by the way, that was always like, hey Pete, FYI Saturday, we're on at 3:00.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you think I'm thinking about next week? Like the hardest thing for me is like booking a vacation. Like, when somebody's like, all right, we're gonna go in August. What are you doing in August? I'm like, how the hell do I know what I'm doing in August? I don't know what I'm doing next week.
That's easy for me. It's football season, so I'm likely not here on the weekends. That's easy for me. By the way, do you want to mention Ian McCarthy puts a great comment in chat about Cody Garbrandt. The fact of he's not a volume puncher. There's no question about that. It's one of those things, and I heard someone else talk about this in terms of Rob's defense for this fight is you're not worried about that, 3 jabs coming at you. You're worried about that overhand right.
Yeah, no, I misspoke. I was trying to say that Font is more the volume guy. Cody's more of the power guy. But they both have avenues for being a part of the optimal, and I think that their salary makes them 2 of the best value plays on the entire slate.
Yeah, so of course we're just here a couple of moments away from these fights starting up here. Looking forward to the matchup. Looking forward to that main event. It should be a good one tonight between Rob Font and Cody Garbrandt. Obviously Cody. The question to me really is more about is he someone that is going to stick out 135 or is he going to go back down to 125 pounds? Do want to just hop over our Slack here. Just make sure there wasn't any questions that I missed over there. Of course, I'll hop in Slack throughout the night or afternoon as we watch the fights.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm starting a job tonight, so I didn't know how to do the job. There's no training. I'm just hopping on and going in there. So I'll be watching some fights till I have to peace out. But if you guys like our show, before you head out, please hit that like button, get us over 100 likes, and share your screenshots throughout the night. It does make our day.
Gordon mentions Rothwell Burnett. That would be Rothwell for me.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, so that's but of course, don't forget, coming up here in 2 hours from now, it'll be MLB Live Before Lock. Then after them, it'll be NBA Live Before Lock. So keep it here, locked to Awesemo all day long, and I will talk to you tomorrow for NBA Live Before Lock, noon Eastern time, and then I'll be hosting the NASCAR Live Before Lock show at 1:30 Eastern time. So good luck to everyone, and let's watch some good fights. Talk to y'all tomorrow.